New warning on the damaging impact from climate change. Hong Kong clears up after violent rainstorm. And calls for Hong Kong to ensure official records aren't destroyed. Good evening. Top scientists warned today that global warming is a growing threat to humanity and will have a serious impact on weather, the economy, and our food and water supply. The latest report from the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says the effects are being felt everywhere. And if nothing is done, it could undermine civilization as we know it.
We have assessed impacts as they are happening, and impacts on natural and human systems on all continents and oceans. Nobody on this planet is going to be untouched by the impacts of climate change.
One of the most important findings is that we're not in an era where climate change is some kind of a future hypothetical. We live in a world where impacts of climate changes that have already occurred are widespread and consequential. We see impacts from the equators to the poles and from the coast to the mountains. There's no question that we live in a world that's already altered by climate change.
Well, unstable weather has been talked about as one of the consequences of climate change, and there's been plenty of that here in Hong Kong. After last night's heavy downpour and hailstorm, the city was hit by more torrential rain this morning. Vicky Kung has details.
Hong Kong woke up to yet another downpour after the thunderstorm overnight. Rush hour traffic slowed to a crawl in some places. The amber rainstorm warning was in effect between 8:40 and 11:40 a.m. The inclement weather this morning was due to a trough of low pressure sweeping across the region. More than 40 millimeters of rain was recorded in many parts of the territory. The weather is expected to remain unstable at least until Thursday. In Kwai Chung, a wall collapsed at the car park of an industrial building on Wah Sing Street after heavy rain. At Siu Lam Chun, the water level was about 30 centimeters high. The rain also caused heavy crop damage. This woman at Yin Kong village in Kutung shows us what last night's hailstorm did to her field of lettuce. She says the vegetables were damaged after the field was flooded 3 times in the past 24 hours. This farm estimated that the losses amounted to some $200,000. Apart from the rain, there were also gusty winds of up to 100 kilometers per hour in parts of Hong Kong this morning. At a container terminal in Tsing-yi, strong winds brought down a cargo container. It crushed 6 vehicles underneath. Although the city has been hit by hailstorms before, a weather expert we spoke to thinks what happened last night was unusual in various aspects.
Normally, in the past, whenever a hailstorm occurred in Hong Kong, it's very localized. Like, it's in Yuen Long. So it's not to the extent that, like last evening, so many places, all at once, they're reporting these hailstorms. And in terms of intensity also, in the past, maybe the hailstorms are just like peas. But now, actually, last evening, from what I've heard from the news, and some of them are as big as ping pong balls, and some even like eggs.
Lee also said hailstorms are normally reported in Hong Kong in the transition period between spring and summer. He believes Hong Kong will be seeing more of these extreme weather conditions due to global warming and urged the society to decarbonize. Vicky Kong, TVB News.
Well, repair work has been going on at Festival Walk, where rainwater flooded shops and restaurants at the mall during last night's storm. The buildings department says damaged rainwater drainage pipes are possibly to blame for the flooding. That story from Evelina Leung.
The mopping up continued at Festival Walk this morning. The worst affected area is underneath this glass ceiling on the upper floors of the north side of the mall. And today it was still dripping everywhere. The part of the ceiling that gave way right next to the ice rink has been removed. 2 people working at this makeup counter managed to escape unscathed just before the ceiling came down. The shop's manager is still calculating the losses and was just glad that no one was hurt.
From outside, I think the most important thing is the safety of our beauty advisors. So as long as everybody is safe, I think we are okay.
Because the mall had been flooded with rainwater, many of the escalators here had to be shut down. And workers have been here since this morning, removing the water from the escalators. The buildings department said this afternoon it's believed that damaged rainwater drainage pipes on the roof of the mall caused the water to seep in. Engineer Greg Wang explains.
And because the water accumulated to a certain depth, there is certain pressure causing the large quantities of water to flow into whatever cracks and cleavages on the roof and causing this waterfall problem.
Alarming as it might have seemed, the buildings department said the water leaks had nothing to do with last night's hailstorm. The damaged pipes have since been fixed. It was chaos inside the mall last night during the black rainstorm warning. Electric cables were left exposed when a part of the ceiling collapsed. No one was hurt. Evelyn Line, TVB News.
Well, in other news, there are calls for new laws to ensure that valuable archives containing important government information are not destroyed. A group of retired judges and former civil servants have come together for the cause, and as Jenny Lam reports, they think the issue has been neglected in Hong Kong for too long.
They call themselves the Hong Kong Public Records Concern Group. Their mission, promote proper record keeping and preservation of government archives. They believe members of the public have the right to such records in order to learn about Hong Kong's past and hold the government accountable.
Occupy Central. The one-man, one-vote for CE. Nomination committees. All these are subjects that are of intense debate. Government, therefore, would have discussions internally, considerations, decision-making. Imagine if there is no law governing archives, then we will never know what really happened.
An investigation by the Ombudsman earlier concluded that government guidelines on how to archive materials are lax and sometimes not strictly followed. The Director of Audit also criticised the government's handling of past records. The Hong Kong Public Records Concern Group wants the guidelines written in law to make sure nothing will be lost. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
North and South Korea fired artillery shells into each other's waters today. The flare-up of tension forced residents of 5 frontline South Korean islands to evacuate to shelters. The South Korean Defense Ministry says North Korea fired more than 500 rounds of artillery, much of which landed in waters south of a disputed maritime border. The South returned fire with more than 300 rounds aimed at an area north of the so-called Northern Limit Line. The maritime border wraps itself around a part of the North's coastline and has been the scene of frequent clashes. North Korea has ratcheted up its rhetoric in recent weeks and conducted a series of missile launches in response to what it sees as a threat posed by a series of joint U.S.-South Korea military drills. The current drill ends on April 18th. Australia's Prime Minister sent reassuring words that no matter how much time and money is spent, they will not stop searching for the missing Malaysia Airlines plane. But as Sonia Artero reports, one salvage expert believes this is one mystery that won't be solved for a very long time.
Australia has officially placed no time limit on the hunt for flight MH370, which vanished more than 3 weeks ago.
We owe it to the families, we owe it to everyone who travels by air, we owe it to the governments of the countries who had citizens on that aircraft, we owe it to the wider world.
With what little searchers have to go on, one of the world's most experienced deep-sea shipwreck hunters believes relatives will have no closure for a very long time. That, coupled with the fact that the black box battery will die out in less than a week.
The harsh reality is that we're not going to find that black box in this phase of it. It would be 1,000,000 to 1 chance for them